What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name's Chris George, and I have one major problem with The Witcher Old World. And that's that the minis look so good, and I want them. Bet you didn't see that coming. But I know that I can barely afford the base pledge, which after shipping will clock in for me about $140 Canadian. And so I wanted to make a video talking myself out of spending that money. Or maybe talking myself into it. I don't know, because right now I'm kind of on the fence. On one hand, the minis look incredible, and there's a part of me that wants to be involved in the backing of one of the top 10 Kickstarter board games of all time, which The Witcher has recently broken into. But on the other hand, I want to make sure that if I spend this money, which is not an insignificant amount for me, that I won't regret it down the line. And so similar to what I did when I wasn't backing Marvel United, I have for you 5 reasons why you shouldn't back The Witcher Old World. Now, if you're excited about The Witcher, and over 35,000 of you are, that's fantastic, and I don't want to be the one to quench that excitement. I don't want to become the guy, the killjoy, who keeps telling people not to spend money on board games. That's not what I'm about. I'm only ever going to do this type of series on games that are absolutely smashing it on Kickstarter right now, whose success won't be affected by my video, to provide an alternate take for a FOMO-prone gamer like myself. With that being said, there are a great number of reasons why I am really excited about The Witcher, and I might end up backing it. I'm still not sure. For one, the stretch goals keep piling up, and I really do think they add value that you'd otherwise have to pay for down the line. You're definitely being rewarded for taking a leap of faith on this project. The Wild Hunt, which is the solo co-op variant, I could live without. Doesn't really interest me. But the other two seem specifically included to address various bits of feedback, which again, I like. Now, you might say that putting them as expansions for later instead of putting them into the core game when most people thought that it needed to be in the core game might not be so great a move, but that's not one of my points. These are the positives. The Monster Trail and the Adventure Pack, they look like they're going to add a lot to the game, and to be honest, are primarily my main reasons why I would back now versus getting it at retail. Because the MSRP on these expansions, while expensive and potentially overpriced, are probably fairly accurate judging by their previous campaigns. Plus, the Hound miniatures from the Wild Hunt, which you could use as substitute monster minis if you don't get the Deluxe Pledge. I also love that if you get the Deluxe Pledge, it's going to be in the same box. And while this seems like a really tiny quality of life thing, I think it's awesome that they're providing this, because this way you don't have to deal with 2 boxes, which I personally hate. And this is something they didn't have to do. I'm sure it would have been cheaper to just have the main box and then have an additional monster expansion that they could sell later. Or maybe they just wanted to sell the deluxe box at retail, in which case it's awesome they're giving backers a chance to get the pledge without the minis. Either way, it's noted and very much appreciated on my end. And the miniatures look incredible. They really do. They're a huge draw in getting eyes on the campaign, and if you're a painter, you'll probably just want to stop this video and go pledge, because I'm sure you will be happy. What I also love is that they're listening to their audience. This is Go On Board's 3rd Kickstarter, and I love how they're interacting with their backers. People wanted female characters. They got female characters. People wanted epic bosses they could face at the end. They threw them in there. Not only are they selling more copies because of this, but they're giving people what they want. And that makes me believe that they will continue to give people what they want and work on the game down the line. Plus, I love supporting non-big name publishers, so to speak. And it really makes me wish that I had backed Titans, which was their previous Kickstarter, which raised around 140K, paltry in comparison, because I think the gameplay of that spoke to me a little bit more. I mean, after this, they certainly aren't a small-time publisher anymore. And I have to support my board surname family, after all. Plus, in the URL for the Kickstarter, Go On Board turns into Goon Board, which brings me so much joy. So there really are a lot of positives to look forward to in the last few days of the campaign. June 11th, that's your deadline, until there are late pledges. But, like the title of this video says, there still are a number of reasons why I am hesitant. So here we go, the 5 reasons why you shouldn't back The Witcher. Something to think about before you drop $300 on that all-in pledge. Number 5, you don't like reading chunks of story. From what I've seen, the narrative element of the game is pretty significant. On each of your turns, you'll have the option to either explore the city or the wilderness, and something will happen in which your Witcher in Witcher will have to make a choice, either this or that. This reminds me of the crossroads cards in Dead of Winter, or the exploration element of Seafall, or any of those larger campaign or legacy games. And I don't think that's a bad thing if you're into it. It just means you need to play this game when you want to tell those sorts of stories and get immersed in the lore. This then eliminates this as a game, for me at least, on those days when you're kind of tired, you've been talking all day, and you just want to sit down and play a game to unwind. This doesn't seem like it's going to be that sort of game. It requires a little bit more involvement and a little bit more energy, which again isn't a bad thing, but it just depends on what are your reasons for wanting to acquire this game, and in what situations do you think you'll be playing it. Again, not a huge issue for me, but if you don't like those sorts of story elements in a game, or you get tired of reading out chunks of story over the course of a couple hours, then I really would recommend watching a few playthroughs or parts of them so you can see how prevalent this aspect is. Because to me, it seems pretty prevalent. And while the speed of play can increase the more you know a game, the speed of someone reading text will generally remain constant, unless you're just breezing through it, but in that case, why bother having a game with those narrative elements? Number 4, larger player counts mean more downtime. This doesn't look like a 5-player game. For me, it seems primarily a 2 to 3 player game, even though it says up to 5 players, or 6 players is a possibility now that you have the 6th Witcher. But every time you fight a monster, even if the card combos go quick, it's involving 2 players. Every time you decide to brawl against a fellow Witcher, that's 2 players involved in the action. Every time you play dice poker, that's 2 players who are doing this. I mean, dice poker's really, really quick. Every time you explore, it's 2 people. All of these interactions seem to go relatively quickly, but because of the basic mechanics and the fact that a lot of your decisions stem from your cards and what combos you can create, there's not a lot, at least it doesn't seem like it, that you're going to be doing in between those turns. And so the more people you have, the more you're waiting for 2 people to finish their fun so that it can get around to your turn. If your game group's primarily 4 to 5 people, I don't know how excruciating that downtime is going to be, or if betting a single coin on the outcome is going to be satisfying or engaging enough to keep people at the table and away from their phones. Number 3, the gameplay is lighter. Again, this may not be a bad thing. I don't think it is. I actually think it's great when games that have a prominent IP have sort of lighter gameplay, because people who find the games through the IP and not necessarily the overarching board game hobby in general will be able to have a great time playing it. But the fun of this game sounds like a light leveling up of stats, some deck building, and choose your own exploration, choose your own adventure. And if that sounds fun, great. That's the game you're getting. For me, it doesn't seem like there are particularly many opportunities to be tactical, but it's more of a reactive experience, which I'm not sure if I'm in the market for another game like that currently. That doesn't necessarily bring anything particularly new mechanically to the table. And I know that the Monster Trail is supposed to fix this, and they've added it specifically because of some criticism from reviewers that it was potentially too light. But we don't know how the Monster Trail necessarily plays, because combo point number 2, we don't have a rule book. So we don't actually know if it will deepen the experience. And I get not having a rule book. I understand things are under construction, development's going to continue until October, which is great. And so the rule book isn't finished yet and it doesn't have graphics, etc., etc., etc. And maybe they don't want people to see a Word document of rules and think, oh, this doesn't feel polished. I don't want to back this. But for me, it's kind of the opposite. I need a rule book so I can see if I'm gonna like the game. Playthroughs don't necessarily do it for me. Yeah, I can get a sense of how it plays, but if I'm gonna imagine myself at the table playing the game, I'd like to see the inner mechanics behind it and know how many closet cases might come up. That to me helps me get a sense of how the mechanics work and how prevalent certain elements are, which might get overblown over the course of a single playthrough, but could differ on average. We know the rules exist. It's not a matter of this being too early in the development stage not to have rules. We have the playthroughs. So why not give access to them for those who want them and for those whom it will be helpful to making a decision? The only mention I can see is in the FAQ, which says, we'll get them to you shortly. But when that might be, I don't know. Because if I can't take it for a test drive and play a demo, and I can't look under the hood to see what's going on if there's even an engine, then I'm probably not going to end up buying the car. And finally, the number one reason why you shouldn't back The Witcher is this hype check. Are you excited about the hype, or are you excited because you think you'll enjoy the game? This was my number one on my Marvel video, and it's number one again here as a friendly reminder. What's your reason for backing? I'm assuming the majority, not everyone, but the majority want a fun game. Some might be drawn in because of the IP, they love The Witcher, they say, yes, give me more of that world. Amazing. Some people are painters. They see those beautiful minis and say, yes, give me all of them. Fantastic. But I'm assuming the majority of people are interested in the gameplay and will want a good, solid game to add to their collection and bring to the table. And right now, there's currently too large a part of me that just wants to be part of that top 10 Kickstarter board games of all time and doesn't care what the game is. Just that I've contributed money to it and I'm also part of this event. And that, for me, isn't a good reason to back. I'm not sure if I want another narrative game or a narrative-driven game right now. Usually, deck building with a board, that's my bread and butter. I love it. I want it. But I don't know if I see enough uniqueness here, other than the great IP, to have this stand out amongst other games that I already have in my collection that I know I love and I want to play. So right now, for me, I'm watching it closely. I want it to be something that I love. And it is really close. But for that price point, it's got to blow me away because it's pretty expensive. And it may not be expensive in comparison to every other Kickstarter. It's kind of an average price, to be honest. But every other Kickstarter is also pretty expensive. And right now, it's landing on a, yeah, seems fun, which I don't think elicits an intense enough emotion to warrant me backing right now. So currently, I'm not backing, not even at the $1 level, because my reasoning is they're always going to have late pledges. If I'm really interested in it, I'll seek it out 2 months down the line. And if I'm not interested in it enough that once it's out of my mind and the campaign's done and I no longer think about it, well, then that's a pretty good indication that I probably shouldn't be backing it either. I like having that as a litmus test. Does it enter my mind once the fervor has passed and I think, oh yeah, I should check out The Witcher. What sort of updates have happened? I think that's kind of neat. So what do you think? What are you excited for? Are you backing the game? At what level are you backing? What is the one thing that makes you think, yeah, if this was your only Kickstarter acquisition, what is the thing about it that would make you happy? This is the only one you get for the year, and it's a good one. Are you satisfied, or does that make you want to rethink? Let me know in the comments and help me make up my dang mind, because I'd love an excuse to join you. But whatever you do, if you back or if you don't listen to me, don't listen to the other reviewers, listen to your gut, and make a decision that future you will be happy with, and I hope you play it more than twice. Thank you so much for watching. I wanted to put this video out a little bit sooner, but a Witcher fan caught wind of what I was going to say and jumped through my screen and punched me in the eye. So you're getting it now. Anyway, if this video was somewhat helpful, make sure to like and subscribe because that is somewhat helpful to me. I would appreciate it a lot, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.